2 hours drive away from Moscow. You see? A lot of you. Okay. For sure, yeah, Vlad did tell me a lot of people do come from very far. It's commitment. Okay, I think we can start maybe. Shall we hold hands and pray? No, anyway. Hello everyone, thanks for being here at the end of the day. Hopefully your minds are still fresh. If you need a break to stand up and run around the room and get some oxygen into your body, let me know. My name is Johan Steyn. I'm from Johannesburg in South Africa. It's a very long flight to get here. I was in Portugal earlier in the week for that testing conference, so it's been a week of flying around. I'm going home on Sunday, where it's 36 degrees. I had to find my winter's clothing that I've never worn. Years ago I lived in England, so I had warm jackets and stuff. I didn't even know where to find it. I had to dig in my boxes for the weather here. So I can't wait to go back to where the sun is shining, and it's really warm. In any case. So the two problems I have before I start, as I said earlier, I'm the last speaker of the day, and I see on the program there is a SQA Days party. I'm sure, I don't know what that entails, dancing girls and vodka and stuff, or do we just all chat around? But I mean, so you're all looking forward to that, I'm sure, and after a while you're going to say, can this guy please just finish now so we can go and drink? The second problem I have is that somebody who most likely knows a heck of a lot more than I do about artificial intelligence was the previous speaker. You know, so how do you top that? I would have liked to speak first, because then, you know, you'd see my talk in context. No, I sat at the back, and when you started talking, I realized that first 3 or 4 slides is almost exactly mine, you know, setting the context. So I ran out, and luckily I had slides from another talk I did, and I quickly changed some of the things. So, and because I wasn't here for a lot of the time, I don't know if we're going to contradict each other. We'll see. All right. I call this slide a view from the other side. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself quickly. I was in a sales role, or a business development role, for about 20 years. So I've got a sales background, and I loved selling. And I loved selling services. Selling a product is much easier. You might sell a Dell server against somebody selling an HP server, and it's all about spec and pricing and things like that, but the product pretty much sells itself. When you sell a service, you're selling trust, especially when you sell QA, because that customer is putting his or her career on the line by trusting your organization to help them with their QA services. But it's something that I loved, and I sold some very big deals, especially big automation deals with some banking clients. My biggest client for 8 years then employed me, and that's why it's a view from the other side. So now I'm working for the bank that used to be my client, and I tell you, if I ever go back into consulting, which I think I'd like to in a few years, the whole way I approach clients would be totally different now that I've really seen from the other side of the table how it works. How many of you work for a vendor or a provider of testing services? Just put up your hand. Okay, some of you? Okay, and the rest I assume work for the companies that would buy these tools or services from vendors. Now, one of the things I realized is, or let me rather say this, there's about 17 or so testing providers in South Africa. A lot of them are the typical big global ones, Accenture, IBM, Wipro, Tech Mahindra, and then there are some local ones as well. And I used to compete with all of them for about 10 or so years. And then when I found this job, part of what I do is to now deal with our vendors. So now I'm the client of all these companies in our bank. And it's interesting to see from the other side how all these businesses and these vendors pitch for business. And I can tell you the one thing that pretty much everyone does. The first slide, we're a $400 billion company. We've got 40,000 testers. We're in 58 countries. Blah, 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 blah. And on the other side, and I remember when I did it too, you think you're so great, but you sit on the other side of the table and you think, so flippin' what? What is in it for me? And sometimes about 90% of the slides are all about how great they are. And nowhere in the meeting do they actually ask you about what's your problem, what are you struggling with? You know, and then the meeting ends and we all feel very good about it, and the vendor walks out and we walk out, but there's nothing that's going to happen. There wasn't a meeting of minds. I don't know how many of you knew about a guy called Jerry Weinberg. He was I call him one of the fathers of the testing world. Do you guys know him? He passed away sadly about 3-4 months ago, I think. His books are great, Jerry Weinberg. And the one book is called The Secrets of Consulting. And the book is basically about how do you treat your client if your client is the problem. And he said, no matter what your client tells you, people are always the problem. So often we start with tools and frameworks and all kinds of techie things. Ultimately, and I'm not saying those things, they are definitely part of the problem, but it's people that's part of the problem. And what he talks about in this chapter in his book is how do you deal with a client if that specific person who phoned you to say, come and help us, is the problem. Many years ago, I had a client, and we had a good relationship, so I could be very honest with her. And after dealing with her and her team for about 2 or 3 years, one day she sat me down and she said, I don't care what you say, you're not going to offend me. What do we need to do to fix this situation? And I said to her, well, you need to resign. And she was very offended, but she did tell me I can say anything. But that's the problem. She was the problem, not her whole team, not other vendors, not how the bank worked. She was the problem. So how's this all related to artificial intelligence? In no way at all, but it's a great way to start. So it's basically just to say, so I worked in the vendor side all these years, and now I'm on the client side. But it does relate. Because where I work over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been dealing with all these big and smaller vendors and saying to them, we need to embark on this journey of artificial intelligence and robotics and cognition, machine learning. The problem is we are, like many organizations potentially represented here, our maturity is quite low. We still have a lot of manual testing. We haven't done a lot of shifting left yet. Our data is a mess. So how do you start with artificial intelligence? So they all come in with these amazing white papers and collateral and amazing slides. And when they then discover what bad the situation really is, we never hear from them again. So there's almost this gap. If you are very mature and ready for artificial intelligence, which some organizations are, they can help you. But if you're typically a bank or a big telco, especially if you have all these federated divisions who don't speak to each other, who kind of work against each other, if you've had acquisitions over the years and you brought all these other systems on board, you had all these legacy systems, it is a difficult thing to start on an artificial intelligence journey, or almost for any digitization journey for that matter. And then it's starting those baby steps, proving in certain divisions that it can work, getting more budget for it, etc. So for most of us in this room, the things we're talking about today, the things that you were talking about, are potentially things that you will not soon experience in the place where you work. And it's not your fault. It's the problem of the place where you work. All organizations should be embarking on an AI journey. A lot of organizations are busy looking at it. But again, it's back to, no matter what your client says, people are the problem. All right. So just a little bit about me. I've got just this one marketing slide, and then I'm going to get into the topic. If you want to look at my work, follow me, contact me, etc., that's my website, thebusinessoftesting.com. It's a book I wrote a year ago, called that The Business of Software Testing. And it's a short little book. You can most likely read it in 3 or 4 hours. And it's not just a testing problem. So I don't have a technical background at all. I started working for a testing company almost per chance 10 years ago, and I knew nothing. I actually didn't really even know about software. And I had to learn very, very quickly. And I had to read, and I had to speak to people, and I had to make a fool of myself in front of clients because they talk about terms that I didn't have a clue about, and then it's like a term that everyone uses, you know. So, but I had to learn the business side of what we do because I don't have a technical background. And something that I've discovered, and as I say, it's not just a testing thing, a lot of people are super smart and very good and very technical. But we should really just lock them in the room and put pizza under the door. They should never speak to any people. Okay, you can never take them to a client or a meeting. So there's this middle ground between all of us embarking on becoming more technical, becoming more from automation engineers and all those kind of things. But I think what's often lacking is the people side and the business side. When you sit in a meeting with business or with your client if you're a vendor, they can most likely not really care much about the tools and frameworks you want to suggest. They want to know about bringing costs down. They want to know about how do we test and release faster because our competition is beating us. And often what we do is we lead the conversation with techie stuff and we lose them. So that's why I wrote that book, is to try and just from a testing point of view help people think about the business side of testing, dealing with budgets. This is the other problem. You might have been a very technical person, and as you grow through your career, suddenly you end up managing a small team, then a bigger team, now you manage the whole area. And 99% of your time has nothing to do with testing. Dealing with people's crap, okay, HR stuff, budgets, dealing with stakeholders, the CEO, and a lot of people will then fall back into what they knew, because nothing prepared them to deal with business-related things. The second book you see there, I wanted to finish this year still. It's an AI book on testing. I'm working with some collaborators, but then European summer holiday happened in August and September, and I don't know about where you work, where I work. In this last 2 months, we're trying to land 12 months worth of projects. I don't know what we did the rest of the year, but now before the end of the year, we're working our butts off. I don't know if that's the same way you work. So I'm going to hopefully get that out in about February. And then just the last thing, I do a podcast. My following is about 22,000 testers globally. So it's quite a nice following. It's called Careers in Software Testing. And that's really what the podcast is about. I speak to a lot of people, a lot of well-known people, a lot of people who are not that known. And I ask them, how did you get into testing? The first question, which is almost always a fascinating answer. Because very few of us sitting in this room when you were in high school or college said, one day, I'm going to be a tester. It happened some strange way. And it's interesting to hear how people got into testing. And then I asked them, what is the one thing you wish you knew at the beginning of your career that you know now? Almost everyone will answer around the lines of, I wish I studied more, I wish I prepared myself more, I wish I went to more conferences, I wish I networked with more people, I wish I didn't just stay in my little corner and that I hope my company would send me from training. A lot of them talk about taking your career into your own hands. Especially if you look at LinkedIn Learning and other platforms. It is out there. It's about sitting your butt down on a Saturday when your friends are going out and learning. All right, so that's the last little bit of marketing. So here's a question. How many of you work for a bank or for a financial services institution? Hands up. Okay, quite a few. Okay, so let me ask a different question. How many of you work for a software development company with a banking license? Fewer hands. Theoretically, everyone who put up their hands for the first question should put up their hands for the second question. And I know I'm preaching to the converted. You know how the world has changed? No matter what business you're in anymore, you are a software business. Software is what makes the world go around. So this is what we're trying to do where I work, is to stop thinking like a typical bank and to think like a software development company. A company where we drive innovation, and it's difficult because there's people who's been there for 40 years, and it's not about age, it's about being stuck in how we've always done it. The problem is those people are often the top people, and you almost have to wait for them to die or retire for things to change, okay? I'm sure some of you can identify with that. But so no matter what organization you're working for or working with, it is a software business, and that's why the likes of robotics and machine learning and artificial intelligence is important. If you're a plumber, believe it or not, you could be in the software business. Maybe you've got an app where people can request your services. You should be, because maybe you're busy there fixing the pipes and now your phone is ringing for more business, but you're the only person. So how do you get that business? You don't have a secretary necessarily. So imagine having a little app, like Uber for plumbers or something like that. You know, or what business, no matter what business you're in, it's a software business. It should be a software business. What is the big challenges we're facing at the moment and for the future? Security is massive. If you look at these Facebook leaks and others, the other thing is the people that buy our services, the so-called millennials and others, no brand loyalty. My dad has been banking with the same bank since he was 23 and he's now 72. He will never move. Okay, it wasn't that easy to move in years gone by. Now it's easy. And you move because you use the banking app once and it doesn't work as you want, and you move. And it's because it's that quick. So in the past, where we used to fail, where maybe our automatic teller machines were down or some other service was down, it was kind of an isolated event, it was serious. But now we fail in the hands of our customers. So they've got a mobile phone, they should be able to do anything they want to do on that device. So if one thing fails, that whole thing fails for them. How many of you have been in a bank branch in the last 3 months? Okay. You go because something is wrong, if I'm right. Because you should not ever have to go to a bank branch anymore. Ever. Okay? Now, we know some banks still work in a way that you have to go in and sign 55 forms and things like that. But we should not have to go to a bank branch anymore. I'm glad I'm not working in a bank branch. Because I don't know if those people, if things go the way it should go, will have a job for long. Let me ask you a different question. And you kind of spoiled, previous speaker spoiled it a bit. How many of you have used artificial intelligence today? No, or you were not listening, because it should be everyone's hand. Almost all the apps on your phone is driven one way or another by artificial intelligence. Some of it is still in its infancy. I think you alluded to this. AI as a whole is still somewhat in its infancy. But some of the simplest apps we use is driven one way or another by artificial intelligence. Google Docs, Waze, Shazam, Gmail, I mean, pretty much everything. So we consume artificial intelligence on a daily basis, all of us. Artificial intelligence, you'll see in a later slide, is for our children and their children, it will be like electricity was about 100 years ago. Today, we cannot imagine a life without electricity. If you have the odd blackout, you know, there's a power failure, so now your cell phone tower is most likely down, so you can't call, you don't have data, obviously your house is dark. You hope it's over quickly because it's like living in the Stone Age. If right now we had to lose all our electricity for the next year, I will be one of the people who will die. I don't know how to plant fruit. I don't know how to keep my food fresh. I don't know how to kill animals, you know. So imagine you have that same feeling when you think about artificial intelligence. You cannot imagine a world where it never existed. My son is 5. He will have a job one day, most likely, that doesn't exist yet. People in 3 years from now will have jobs to some extent that doesn't even exist yet. Okay? Imagine the world of testing in 3 years from now. And that's what we want to talk about today. All right, so imagine you go to a cocktail party, some sort of party. And what's the first thing when you meet strangers? What do people ask each other? What do you do? Okay. Hello.
Hello. Making small talk.
You what? Making small talk? Yes, you're right. What do you do for a living?
I do testing.
Testing. What do you test? What's that?
I test bank application.
Bank application, okay. Because when I think of testing, I see these crash test dummies drive into the wall. Okay, because I don't know testing. You know, I'm just using as a... Who else can I pick on quickly? Here we go, yeah. Hello. What do you do for a living?
Oh, the same.
The same? Tester. What do you test?
Bank applications.
Oh, bank. Oh, okay. Well, who doesn't test bank applications? So no one wants to be picked on. No, it's only women for now. Okay, but hang on. Let's pick a guy. Okay, but you've got an earphone on, so I don't know if the English is working. Pointing at him. What do you test as well?
Yeah,
And what
I'm
do you
a tester as well.
And what do you test?
Almost everything, and people.
Okay. Okay, there we go. So, that's the answer we give. And it's sometimes a little weird, because especially if you can't really explain what you do. You know, how do you... If you're a veterinarian, it's kind of easy, you know, I fix dogs and cats that were run over by cars. But I find it sometimes difficult to explain what we do. So it's kind of, I make sure that all the software works together and it works fast enough and no one hacks it and stuff like that, you know. So what do we answer at the cocktail party? We do testing. And what do we test? One way or another we get to that word, functionality. Or we make sure the stuff works. That's normally our answer. So the world of testing and quality management is not only changing, it has already changed. It has changed from under our feet. About 1.5 years ago, I wrote an article on LinkedIn called the DevOps Tsunami. And I compared DevOps, which 1.5 years, 2 years ago was still kind of new, to a tsunami. And you know, a tsunami, there's no real warning. You wake up one day and either your nose is at the ceiling because the water brought you all the way up, you're floating, or your house is gone, but it comes without warning. And I spoke about how the world of testing is changing, how we need to upskill ourselves, the whole idea of shift left. How many of you work within a DevOps world one way or another? Not many? It's a massive change. It's a massive cultural change. For testers in particular, because we are used to working in our testing teams. We are used to working normally at the end of everything, when there's no time or budget left. Okay? Even though and most organizations that say they're agile are not really agile. Maybe they've introduced some agility, and it's a step in the right direction. I know of organizations that one day they took all their project managers and changed their names to Scrum Masters, and now we are agile. And these guys don't have an idea how to run a Scrum and stand-ups and things like that. And so what happens now as a tester, you're no longer right there at the end. Now you're involved in this squad or team or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of us have never learned to let our voices be heard. A lot of us have never learned the skill to stand up to business or to stand up to architecture. So how's the world of testing changing? Hopefully for those of you who are still considered testers, I hope it's going to work. There we go. Quality engineering. That's actually the answer you should give at a cocktail party. What is that? Now maybe testing is just easier to explain. Quality engineering speaks about an end-to-end process, no longer just at the end. Even if you're an organization that's still predominantly waterfall, like I think most organizations are, you don't have to wait for DevOps maturity, you don't have to wait for the whole shift left thing, you have to aim and push for that. But thinking quality, not just my little bit of testing, is the way we need to change our thinking, the way we need to upskill ourselves. Now, everything I'm talking about now is building up to AI. Because if we can't get these things right, AI is not going to fix it. I don't know if you remember, when was it, 10, 15 years ago when the tool vendors started selling automation tools? They sold it like a so-called silver bullet. You just install it, press a few buttons, you press enter, and your automation is done. And it never worked that way. You will find the same with AI. The big global vendors, the consulting firms, are talking about AI as a pretty simple thing, but you have to pay us $2 million. We'll give you the stuff, and it's easy. It's going to be the same as automation tools. Millions of dollars, and then it doesn't work. It doesn't work the way we thought it was going to work. So we're no longer just testers, we're quality engineers. And we no longer test functionality. What is it that we should be testing? Customer experience. This is the aim of what we do, especially in a DevOps kind of squad. If that little bit of functionality that you're testing is working, whoopity-doo. How does the client, the end client, experience the product or the service? And again, quality engineering, end-to-end. You might have heard the saying, everyone involved is, quality is a problem for all of us, but still we are or should be the experts of quality. All right, so it's a mind shift change. These guys are our customers. Now, we have internal customers, often stakeholders, business, but no matter what business you're in, there's somebody at the end that's actually using the stuff. All right, in banking, it's the banking app, or it's the call center, or whatever. Somebody is paying our business money to get something, so banking fees or whatever, or that you're paying your monthly mobile phone subscription, but you want to make sure your WhatsApps go through immediately. You know, you want something out of it. So think about this one. Who is your customer? People talk in meetings a lot about customers. You know, customers don't want this. Customers say this. People kind of throw their weight around in meetings. And you know what's a great question to ask them? Have you actually met your customer? Him or her? Who is your customer? So for instance, have you ever, again in banking, have you actually ever gone into the bank branch? And I'll tell you a story. Okay, so, and that's my next slide as well. So when I started working for the bank I'm working for now, I was a customer of another bank. Now they incentivize you to become a customer of the bank you're working for. You've got interest rate benefits and all kinds of benefits. So it made sense, all right? So the first thing I did is what I call the ATM story. In our cafeteria, there's an ATM. Obviously our ATM, because it's our bank. And I used to go with my other bank card and draw money there to pay for food and things like that. The very last screen of the transaction says, do you want to become a client of the bank? And then you say yes, and then there's a little thing where you put in your mobile phone number, and it says, thank you, somebody will call you. 6 months, no one phoned me. So then I went to 6 different ATMs in the greater Johannesburg area, drew money with my other card, last screen says it, put in my mobile phone number, no one called me. Okay. I think the bank I work for spends about 400 million euros on marketing a year, but we can't get this right. I know it's one example, okay? And I know retail banking is not where banks make money. It's corporate and investment banking, but you still that's your brand. It's the average man in the street like me. Then I went onto their website. There's a little thing you click, you fill in a little form to become a client. I actually got a PDF immediately with a reference number. Another 6 weeks. Okay. So eventually somebody phoned me and said, sorry, I was on holiday. I only saw your email now. And I thought, this is weird. Tell me about it. So on the website, when you fill in your detail, that message goes to one person's email inbox. Okay, not a group. So the guy's not there, so sorry. Here's, in a very competitive world, here's somebody saying, please God, I want to become your client. Please help me. I'm begging you. All your hundreds of millions of euros of marketing is paying off. No one contacts me. And then what I did is I wrote an email to our CEO, who's always open to hear from the ground. Yes, it took him a while to get back to me. And then there was an investigation. So what we discovered with the ATMs is that last screen was written by somebody who left the bank 15 years ago. Last screen when you draw money. It's only when it sees a foreign card it says, do you want to become a client? Then they discovered there were hundreds and thousands of messages over the last few years of people saying, please phone me, I want to become a client. I'm telling you this story to talk about end-to-end quality. The ATM worked perfect. I got my money, it was correct, the little slip came out, everything was fine. Got the SMS immediately. But did the whole end-to-end process work? It didn't. So that's why it's good to meet your actual clients. That's why it's good to be a consumer of the, if you can, of the products or services that you're testing. You know how frustrating it is when you need an Uber and, well, or your battery is down. That's not an application problem, it's your problem. But it's when you're desperate for that thing to work. Your children are hungry and you need to find or order food through an app because all the shops are closed or something like that. And it doesn't work. It's a pensioner who needs that 50 euros to buy food for the next week and the bank's ATMs are down. That's when people feel it. Okay, so think about what I'm telling you. It's quality engineering, and our job is to test the client's experience. Do we understand the client's experience, not just from sitting with them, using the services, but do we have an end-to-end customer journey in the applications that we're testing, or is it just these little boxes that we're testing? And all these things, theoretically, artificial intelligence should be able to use it, help us. Okay, so what happened in 1840? You can see I've changed all my slides because he stole my thunder, so I'm giving you more of a different background to these things. In 1840, it was the start of the so-called First Industrial Revolution. I'm sure most of you have heard about it. It was the development of the steam train and other things. And there were other industrial revolutions. We're now on number 4. What is the common thing that happens through every industrial revolution? People fear it, and we think it's going to take all our jobs away. When this thing happened, imagine your job was to use a horse and a cart to transport people and goods. This monster steam train from the devil is going to take my job away. Or maybe I need to learn how to drive that thing, or to service the wheels and things like that. So every revolution, industrial revolution, brought tremendous fear and uncertainty, and every industrial revolution created a lot more jobs than it destroyed. But everyone does destroy jobs. When the second revolution came, where things were mechanized, where there were kind of industrial lines, so no longer do I build the whole car, my job is just to build this one thing 7,000 times a day and I pass it on. The same is going to happen with the new technology we're faced with today. There will be massive job losses, but there will be a lot more jobs created. Now let's bring this home to us today. Will we lose our jobs? And I don't want to offend you, and I want to be sensitive. If you're a manual tester, 2, maximum 5 years from now, you shouldn't have a job anymore. Now, you will most likely still have a job because organizations will take time to mature. And it's not about fear, it's just about waking up. And that's the one thing I want you to leave with here today, is to wake up to the realities, not just the scary stuff, the incredible opportunities that is in front of us. When I start planning a presentation, I always start with my very last slide. Because what's the one thing I want people to leave with? And then I build the slides to the front again. So I'm just going to say that's what I just said. If you walk out saying, because I'm not going to give you a lot of answers today, I'm going to hopefully let you ask a lot of questions. If you walk out of here saying, shucks, this is real, it's no longer the future because AI is not the future, it's here now, it's in its infancy, yes, but from a software development point of view, all roles are busy changing. And you have to upskill yourself, and there are so many exciting, amazing, and free ways to upskill yourself, depending on what you want to do. Not everyone wants to become a super technical person or machine learning engineer, but find something that you're excited about. And toward the end of my slides, I'm going to show you some names of people that's worth contacting. There's about 15 to 20 people in the world that I know of who are AI practitioners in software quality management. Go and look at their white papers, their seminars, contact them. That's the other nice thing about a lot of these people. They write back. Sometimes they will do a phone call with you. But there are ways of upskilling yourself. So remember that picture. We all feared it. Well, not us, not even our parents, not even their parents, the ones before them. And a lot of jobs were lost, but more jobs were made. And the same is going to happen now. Here's just a slide that shows you that we're now in the 4th industrial revolution. In fact, we're already on the cusp of the 5th. I don't know if the screen is clear enough. In fact, I can't even see what it says. Yeah. I'm sure these slides will be available in a few days. Okay, super. Because especially the names of the people I want to show you, I don't want you to have to write it all down. Those slides will be available. But this is where we are now, at the cusp of number 5. Let me go back. You can take the picture if you want. The quality is just not good, unfortunately. So, all right. And this is what the 5th industrial revolution is. Robots, artificial intelligence. Robots that are smarter than us. They're not smarter than us yet. Well, if you look at most people, you have to wonder, you know. I heard something good the other day. Artificial intelligence assumes there is already intelligence. Okay? And if you look at mankind, questionable, you know. Another important term that I want to mention here is something called cobotics. Cobotics is where humankind and robots work together, where robots still serve us. Not robots taking over the world, end of the world, Hollywood movies kind of thing. So imagine that, because I know for most of us, 50%, maybe 80% of what we do in our daily lives is a pain in the butt. It's repetitive, it's boring. So as testers, it could be reporting or meetings. You know, I've sometimes spent more time running reports to people who I don't think will read it than actually doing work. So imagine you can take those manual, repetitive tasks and let AI or robotics do it for you and focus on the stuff you're good at and the stuff you love. So cobotics says, don't fear that they're going to take over, but learn how to use this to still serve you and to do so you can focus on what you're good at. All right. So just remember, same as the steam train, a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of people is against this. Millions of people will lose their jobs, and more millions of people will have new jobs. On what side of the coin will you fall? So, Lego. How many of you are still playing with Lego? And you can be very honest here today. Good, good, good. You know that adults is a bigger market for Lego than children. Okay. As I said, I have a 5-year-old, so the only Lego I know is 3 o'clock in the morning when I walk in the dark to the toilet and I step on a piece. Then I say ugly words that I'm glad my child is not hearing because he's sleeping. But I loved Lego. But as I said, it's still, and I think it most likely must be very relaxing if you play with it now after a hard day's work. It's not my thing, but good for those of you who confessed your weaknesses here today. So I want to sketch a scenario. You're looking for another job. It's time to move on. You're a bit bored at where you are. And you see an ad on LinkedIn or somewhere that Lego is looking for head of testing or head of quality engineering or whatever. And you're thinking, these oaks make plastic. How difficult can this be? You're most likely working in a bank or in a big telco or another organization. You could be what we can call a test program manager, somebody who's managed several teams, perhaps several teams across the world. And you're thinking, it's actually time for a bit of a break. I just want an easy job for the next year or two. I'm going to apply for this job. Okay. So you apply to go work at Lego. Now, these are some of the slides I put in 10 minutes ago. Let me just familiarize myself with them. Okay. Duplo Stories. So Lego, I didn't know this until I saw, there's a podcast where I saw this. Lego is on the cutting edge of artificial intelligence, especially language processing, natural language processing through Amazon Alexa. A child, and I'll show you a video just now, can actually speak to artificial intelligence through this device and ask for certain stories. Like, I want a story, or it'll say, what do you want to hear? Say a story about a sheep, a goat, or a duck. You say a story about a goat. They've programmed it so that if the child doesn't say please at the end of the sentence, it doesn't do anything. If there's swearing, then it corrects the child and will not do anything. So it's interesting. But something like this, especially when it comes to children, opens a massive can of worms. Like with any technological advance, the dark side is always there. And we'll get to the dark side now. Now let me quickly, this is where I'm going to need volume if it's not already on. And let me just quickly see if I can press play here. It's a short little video, but it's of a little girl using this device. Let's just see.
Hi guys, boys and girls. Welcome to the Rebecca Show. Today I'm going to do story time with my Lego. Alexa, play Lego Duplo Stories.
Would you like to hear a story about vehicles or a story about animals?
Animals.
Animal stories are some of my favorites too. I have stories about a rabbit, a bird, a cow, a dog, and a cat. Let's begin.
Alexa, play Lego Duplo Stories. What's that?
Would you like to hear a story about vehicles or a story about animals?
Vehicles, please. Let's go with my friend today.
Cool. I love stories about vehicles. It sounds like you're a real adventurer. I have stories about a truck, a plane, a car, a train, and a boat. Which story would you like?
A plane, please. Whoa.
Are you ready to begin the story now?
No.
Okay, say Alexa ready when you're ready to continue.
Okay. A child using artificial intelligence to communicate with the outside world. So you now go for this Lego interview. And again, how difficult can it be? Although the video already tells you what you're in for. All right? So in the interview, they talk about these things. Just want to see why my text look like that. Oh, shucks. Okay, I'm just going to leave it like that. It's funny. Natural language processing, which is what we saw here today, it's what most of the call centers we call today also do. There's an insurance company in China, and this is documented. They have an 86% accuracy on knowing which client will call them on what day, at what time, about what issue. But it's based on the right kind of data, behavior, the products, etc. So, and again, that's back to cobotics. So it's still a human agent answering the phone, but with the most probable answer to the question that they don't know you're going to ask it on the screen. All right. So that's not the robot taking over, it's a robot helping the human. But we use Siri. I mean, I hate Siri. I don't know if you use Siri. I've trained it for my accent, but every now and then I swear at it. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it actually corrects me. I don't know if it's a new built-in feature. I try not to do it when my child's in the car, but I'm frustrated with it. Years ago, we used something called Dragon Dictate. Can you remember that? It's a lot of years ago. But it was maybe the first commercialized voice dictation software. But you had to train hours and hours and hours. You had to read these scripts so that it can learn how you speak. And even then, it was still a mission. Try Google Docs. If you go to Google Docs and you click on voice recognition, I've heard some people with strange accents, and it's almost 100% accurate. And that's where we are today. But now in this interview with Lego, they talk about testing natural language processing. They're talking about content moderation. That's the text that's over the other. They talk about the Life app. So we've got about 500,000 children in the US using the Lego Life app that can essentially ask anything. Okay? And now we're sitting with problems. What about anti-piracy? What about pornography? What about some bad people hacking this thing, influencing that child? This is massive, because your child, it's not just anyone out there. So can you imagine the brand damage to Lego if there's ever a leak that 10 children somewhere in the city got enticed into some sort of sex trafficking ring or something like that? All right? They talk about just some of the other products, vision sensors, augmented reality, chatbots, and the like. All I'm trying to do through this Lego illustration is, when, in my imaginary story, when you went for the interview, you thought, how difficult can this be? Now they're saying, can you write a master test plan for this? Can you recruit the right people? And can you select a testing tool? Because none of the typical testing tools can do this. And you're thinking, oops, I wasn't prepared for this. Remember what I said in the beginning? Any organization you're working for or will work for next is a software-driven organization. Wherever you go to next as a tester, you will be faced with some of these things. Are you prepared? Do you know what it's about? Do you even know what some of these words mean? I think now it's time for a break. It did go very quickly. I don't know if you guys want to go out or whether you just want to stand for 5 minutes and we keep on going. Who wants to just have a quick stand? No break? I know you just want to get finished and get to the party. Okay, so we'll keep on going. Okay. I alluded to this already. What is your view of artificial intelligence? We can only thank Hollywood for making us think the wrong way. Okay. Robots taking over. Robots, and some of it is potentially true. You know, AI is already weaponized. And we touched on super intelligence, and we'll get to that too. What if AI can launch a nuclear attack on another country? Suddenly the world of testing is so much more important, making sure that software works. We heard the example of the woman on the bicycle. One of the biggest places where AI is playing a big role at the moment is healthcare. AI can predict or can see a tumor on a scan something like 100 or 300 times better than the doctor. But do you want your child or your parents or your partner or your life depending on the software that's working? Okay. So we've got a big job in this new world, you know. So what I'm basically asking here is, do you think it is an absolute horrible thing going to take over the world, or is it here to serve us? It's both, and it depends on what we as humans make of it. Our history over the last few thousand years says that we'll most likely screw this up, but then it's also our end, but hopefully not. Musk, they've got two different views, and you'll hear so many different views about AI. Musk talks a lot about how it's the worst thing that's ever happened, although some of his last tweets, I don't know if he was high, because you know he's also smoking marijuana. He did it on that one video. Do you guys see it? He was on the radio interview, but they were filming it, and he was smoking dope, but it was California, so it was not illegal. Okay, bless them. But so he seems to warm up to it. Obviously, Zuckerberg's always been pro that, but you'll hear different views, and you yourself will also have a different view, and that's okay. Remember, back to the steam train. Is it based on fear? It doesn't help if we fear these things. Are we going to embrace it? Let's make money out of it. Let's make it serve humankind, like I said, rather than in weapons, but in the medical field and things like that. In 2030, now this is an interesting website, this Visual Capitalist. They've got incredible visualizations about different things, different technologies. It's a fun way to learn. I don't know how they do it. I've actually asked them if I can use some of the next slides, and they said, no, do it, as long as you have our logo on there. But go and have a look at some of their things. But they speak about the $17.5 trillion market by 2030, which is not that far away, that will be created through industries and new industries by artificial intelligence. This is the one I alluded to earlier. Just as 100 years ago, electricity transformed industry after industry, AI will now do the same. Because we all pretty much grew up with electricity, we most likely don't appreciate that. But if you never had electricity, the country I live in and a lot of other countries, still a lot of people who don't have electricity or running water or anything like that, things we just take for granted. So we might not appreciate what it was like to not have electricity and have it now. AI will have the same impact. I'm not sure if you touched on it while I was out there, were the two so-called AI winters. Have you ever heard of that? So AI has been around for 60 years, but we never had the technology. So there was this hype, and then it died down. There was the first so-called winter, which I think is in the 60s somewhere. Then there was another one in the 80s, and when this recent-ish hype started, people said it's going to be another winter, it's just going to die down. But now we have the computing power to make this real. So it won't just die down, it won't just go away, we can't wish it away. I pressed something wrong there, there we go. No sector or business in any way is immune to the impact of AI. I've already alluded to that. I don't care what kind of company you're working for. Every company, every service, every organization is already touched by this and will be touched even more. Now that's $15.7 trillion. Look at this, labor productivity improvements of $6.6 trillion. That's with a T, trillion. It's a lot. Again, back to a lot of job losses, but look at the labor improvements. Again, on what side of the coin are you going to fall as this thing is coming our way? Consumer demand, 9.1 trillion. This shows you the industries, banking, financial services, professional, etc. Again, and you can go and look at this site if you want for the exact numbers. Now I want to go to this one, the World Economic Forum. This came out, I think, in the last month or so. It's actually strange. Well, it's still 2018, isn't it? But it might seem like I'm deviating a little bit now, but I want to tell you what they are showing, and you can see the same with Gartner and with some of these other organizations. They're all essentially saying the same. I'm going to go through a few slides to summarize what this report says. Keep on thinking about the world of testing and the world where you're working in now in your job when we go through some of these numbers. I hate to read slides, but I'm going to have to read these. The golden rule is never have more than 14 words on a slide, but sometimes you just have to. Okay, so I'm going to put it up here. So between now and 2020, and 2020 is how many years ago? Remembering we're in November? 2 years essentially, okay? We've seen so far. Where I work, we always have this 2020 vision, and it was so far away. It's here. Okay, we know a lot of these things. Global high-speed mobile internet. We've might have heard about the balloons that Facebook and Google and those guys are working on, so that even the farthest out areas in the world where people are still walking around like primitive mankind will have internet access. All right. AI, which we're speaking about today, big data analytics, cloud technology. Right? This is not news. A lot of it we know. 85% of companies, and they don't specify which companies, all companies adopting big data analytics. Internet of Things is really the best place to have artificial intelligence. And why is that? Because of the massive amounts of data that's being produced. All right. So if you have sensors in a factory or in a mine or somewhere else, all of that data can be used through an artificial intelligence to predict client behavior and a lot of other things. Augmented and virtual reality. I want to actually get to the next slide, but look at the stationary robots. We know what that is. Non-humanoid land robots. So a humanoid robot is obviously a robot that kind of looks like a person, although we know it's just the outer shell. Non-humanoid is just robots that look like anything, but they are on our assembly lines in our banks. So imagine your top tier banking clients. The moment they walk into a branch or into an office, through facial recognition, the branch manager gets a little ping to come and greet them by the hand. You know, facial recognition, can of worms from a security point of view. I don't know if I want to be facially recognized. Although I'm a law-abiding citizen, so I don't really worry about it too much. But if you're not, okay. You can read that. Businesses expect to extend, here we go. 38% of businesses expect to extend their workforce to new product-enhancing roles. Do you see the job gains here? Yeah, it's the one I wanted to get to. Currently, 70% of all work's done by humans, the rest by robots. But now look at 2022. 58% only and 42% by machines. So can you see where this trend is going? Are we going to get to a point where nothing is done by humans anymore? I doubt that. But in just a few years, look where the trend is going. Again, think back to your job right now. Will you still have work the way you're working now if you don't change and upskill in 2-3 years from now? Look at these new roles. So AI and machine learning specialist. I haven't seen that being advertised yet. Will you be able to apply? All right. Big data specialist, process automation, human-machine interaction designers. That's a cool job. And robotics engineers. And I'll bring in some potential titles for testing quite soon. This is what I wanted to get to. By 22, 54% of all employees will require significant re- and upskilling across the board. 35% up to 6 months of training, 9% up to 12 months, while a tenth of your workforce will need more than a year's worth of training. So think of your testing team or your software development team where you're working now. To get to where we need to get to in a short few years, this is the kind of training and upskilling that's going to happen. Now, like I said earlier, it's in our hands to do it, but the problem is that a lot of the organizations we're working for is not waking up to this because they'll spend billions of dollars training their people if they realize it. So now we have to just do what we can, and there is a lot that we can do. But we're going to have to reskill the human race almost. If you're currently not computer literate, you are considered illiterate. It's like you can't read. My child who's 5, when he's an adult, if he cannot code, he will be considered illiterate. I don't know what I'm going to do by then. Maybe you should play golf so that he can earn a lot of money. Okay, let's bring it back to our world. You know the picture of evolution, not everyone believes in it or not, that's not really what it's about, but you know, they say we started out as monkeys and then we became humans, although I think the mindset of this is still here, if you look at most of us. But we started walking upright, we started making fire, we started worshipping gods, we started having an intellect apparently. And then I want to bring up this, and I don't think it's going to be clear. This is from Tricentis. I'm not affiliated to them at all, but if you Google Tricentis AI testing, something like that, you'll find this slide. So it for me relates a little bit to evolution, if you would. So I'm going to talk through it now, but then just imagine in your organization, where on the ape to man scale do you fit? Because most of us will be toward the left, the way our organizations work, okay? Okay? Shift left, shift to the ape. This one is classical testing, where testing takes months and years, okay? At the end, not automated, very manual and things like that. Then you got to Agile, where it takes less, where it maybe takes weeks and months. The bulk of us in this room most likely currently sits here somewhere, okay? Most audiences I speak to, most companies I've worked for, still pretty much sits here. As I said earlier, we talk about Agile, maybe we've got a Scrum Master, maybe we've got a Kanban board or whatever. We still pretty much sit here. A lot of manual testing, a lot at the end. No influence over architecture, no influence over business, no end-to-end quality management. Then there's this, what they call this DevOps chasm. We almost have to take a jump. DevOps and true Agile should lead to continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous testing. There's amazing stuff on the web about this, but I think for most of us, in practical terms, continuous testing is still a very far land to travel to. I think we're dabbling with it. Totally new skills, totally new tools, totally new ways of working. If you're still stuck here as the ape man, you haven't learned to make fire yet or to start walking upright, even though we talk this talk, we're not there, a lot of us. A lot of the vendors can help you only if you're there. All right, so you have to almost figure out this step yourself. And then but there are organizations that successfully, but it's often smaller ones, younger organizations, not a lot of legacy. That then leads us to the conversations today, quantum computing, machine learning, and things like that. You cannot go from here to using AI in testing in just a jump. Not even from here, but from here. So just think of, in your own organization, where on this scale do you sit? How many of you are dabbling with or are working in continuous delivery, continuous integration, something like that, okay? But it's a massive mind shift change. In fact, it's perhaps a bigger change than DevOps, even though you can't take DevOps as a single thing. But for the whole delivery organization to work together now, to look at totally new terminology, totally new technology, and things like that, it's a massive change. Where I work, there are aspects of the bank where we're getting that right, but the biggest part of the bank we're not even close to that, okay? But so just keep this picture in mind and go find it on the internet, because there's a whole article that explains it to you as well. Because a lot of times people ask after an AI talk, fantastic, we're not scared of it, we want to embrace it, where do we start? And that is a difficult question. And I think the previous talk most likely gave more practical advice than I'm giving you today. But keep this in mind and determine where you are. Don't try and jump too far. What is the next step, even if it's baby steps? All right. And as I said earlier, you might be limited by the organization you're working in. The organization might not be able to go to Agile, even though they say they are. So no matter what you do, you can look at all the continuous deployment tools in the world, but it's not going to work. Maybe the answer is to find another job, to work somewhere else and to learn what you need to learn there. Let's check time. Oops, I'm stuck on something. All right. I'm going to rush a little bit now, guys. So again, hopefully these slides will be available in a few days. There are 3 sources. Some of them you most likely know that I want to encourage you to get your hands on, and I'm going to unpack it in a few slides now. The World Quality Report, I'm sure most of you are most likely familiar with it. Capgemini, Sogeti, they are the guys who bring it out on an annual basis. I read this every year. Free download. They've been talking about AI and testing in the last 3 or 4 years worth of editions. One of the things that they said last year as well, about a third of IT budgets is spent on quality assurance, of which testing is a part. But the mature organizations spend about a third of their IT budgets on software testing and quality management. It's true where I work, I don't know about where you work, but think of it, if it's €100 million budget, a third of that should be spent on quality management and testing. In the next 2 years, it's going to go up to 42%. And why is that? Because quality is becoming such a big issue in the world of hacking, in the world of fast deployment, and as I said earlier, the mobile phone in your pocket, things like quality is king, customer experience is king. I'll get to that now. The only book I could find on AI and testing, there's obviously a heck of a lot of books on artificial intelligence, but on AI and testing, and there's maybe more now, is another Sogeti book, Testing in the Digital Age. The table of contents is about 8 pages, but it's a worthwhile book to read. I think that's about $12 or so, but they make it very practical, and they differentiate, and was mentioned in the previous talk, the difference between using AI to test and testing AI systems. The terminology, the tools, and things like that. And then there's a book by Andrew Burgess called The Executive Guide to Artificial Intelligence, which I also encourage you to get. It's not technical at all. It's a book for business executive explaining in business terms what is artificial intelligence. Remember what I said, you can have all the technical words in the world, the people who most likely have the budget to pay for your first POC will not have a clue what you're talking about. So he talks about what part of your business to start with an AI journey. How do you build a return on investment model for it and things like that. So it's really a worthwhile book to get. So I'm just going to touch on some of these aspects that I've highlighted. Intelligence-driven quality assurance. It should not be a thing, like another thing we talk about. It should just be what we do. When you talk about retesting software, it is to be assumed it's intelligence-driven quality assurance. We're all very far away from that. Okay, hopefully not for long. I highlighted the word tools. Most of us in this room are most likely not using your traditional testing tools anymore. I don't know. A lot of companies have spent so many millions of euros on it that they most likely keep on sweating those assets. I know where I work, we don't use any of the big names anymore. As a very traditional old bank, we in the last year or so opened ourselves up to all within certain frameworks, but to all kinds of open source and new kind of tools. A lot of organizations are not doing that yet, but to test for AI and to test AI takes new technology. Just the one at the bottom there. Take on more repetitive analysis and execution tasks and routine jobs. Let me read it again. Think about whether this is your job or what a big part of your job this is. Analysis and execution tasks and routine jobs. For a lot of us, that's a big part of our job some days. Robotics can most likely already take a lot of that away, but AI definitely will in the next 2 or 3 years. So that we can focus on more important things, but make sure you are skilled enough to do those more important things. Are you all still with me? I know it's the end of the day. I don't know if there's enough air in the room. It's not just all doom and gloom. From that Sogeti book, the test for experience, that second one there, client experience, artifacts that we're already collecting is the data we can start using on an AI journey. But where are those artifacts stored? That's sometimes, or are they even stored? That's sometimes the challenges we faced. AI quality engineer. Imagine that being advertised on LinkedIn again. Digital test engineering, I think a lot of us have heard that term, but imagine you want to apply for an artificial intelligence quality engineer. I don't even know if most companies know how to write that job spec. What is that? Okay. This is from the Andrew Burgess book, and again, I don't know if it's very clear, but what I want to highlight is the 3 phases. So he talks about the 3 main steps on embarking on an AI journey. The first one there at the top is about capturing information, using early onset robotics and artificial intelligence to essentially create data. I've spoken to some people who are using robotics to create test data because they don't have enough. That was a fascinating conversation, okay? Then we get to figuring out, now that we have the data, what is happening, and then later on, Why is it happening? The why is it happening speaks about machine learning, predictive analytics, and things like that. So not only do we pick up the defects, but what if you know why the defects are there to avoid them? Defect prediction. We did a POC with one of the big vendors where they actually got it right. We had 100,000 test cases. We brought it down to just 10,000 and our coverage up with 40% through predictive analytics and other associated technology. Not every area in your business is maybe ready for that, but imagine just the business case there. Because money is always the thing, but in our competitive world, time is more important than money, because we often have money to burn, a lot of the organizations we work for. But you cannot wait long to release because of your competition. So if you can bring your time to test down, and you can bring your spend down as well, massive business case. So it is possible. All right. Defect prediction, but then you need the kind of AI tool, and you need the right data to do that. We're not far from finished, and time has been flying, although we've got half an hour left, but I'd almost like to finish before that. And I think the previous talk was also about this. I want to just touch on some of the terminology, and I'm not going to go through all of it. And again, sorry that my text is all messed up. I did this on a Mac, so now we're on a Windows machine. And if you're used to a Mac, and you can only hate Windows. In any case, the one thing I want to highlight: robotics, or robotics process engineering, or something like that. A lot of people, when they talk about AI, are talking about robotics. Colleagues, business people, vendors even. Remember, robotics is not self-learning. There's no intelligence behind it. Robotics is ideal for your typical repetitive back office task. Form A7 comes in, needs that stamp, needs that approval, needs to go there. That's a process you can automate, but it doesn't learn. Okay, so robotics is not artificial intelligence. Don't let people try and tell you that, not even in testing. Again, in the previous talk, we spoke about the machine learning and all of that. I just want to highlight this quickly. And again, this is a repetition from the previous one. This is where we are now, narrow artificial intelligence. It can do narrow tasks. It can win us in chess. It can do some cool things. General artificial intelligence, I don't know what your research says, 5 years or so? Don't know? More? Less?
Nobody knows today.
Okay. I read a lot of people saying 5 years, but then again, you don't know. Because some of these white papers are actually just a sales pitch in the background as well for something else. And then artificial superintelligence. And there's a book by Nick Bostrom, which will come to one of my slides now, called Superintelligence. I found it a massively difficult book to read, but it was very good. He speaks about using AI, and he speaks a lot about ethical issues like warfare, but imagine creating designer babies through in vitro fertilization, using artificial intelligence, where you can custom design the baby, the eye color, the hair. You can actually look at the genetical defects, because we all pass down genetical defects to our children that we got from our parents, and you cancel that out. You can see through AI that this child will possibly die from cancer at age 80 because of a problem in the spine. Just take it out of the genetical stream through AI. We're very far away from that. But it opens up a big can of worms, because again, imagine the good it can do. Now we can create monsters as well, Frankenstein and super soldiers and who knows what. So I'm not going to stand still here. Just familiarize yourself with the terminology so that you know what people are talking about when they're talking about these things. Good friend of mine, Andrew Williams from IBM, he's the head of IBM's testing capability globally, and he works on a lot of AI stuff. Somebody that's worth following on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I actually just want to get to the bottom part there. Top 3 ways you can predict and protect your future in test. Defect classification, that's what I found in the POC we were busy with. To actually classify your defects, not just test, because how much testing is enough? It's a philosophical question. What do you test? But imagine AI can help you to know what to test for. Maybe just the 10% rather than 100%, do it much quicker. And through just testing the 10%, you get to 90% or 110% coverage. Prediction, quality transformation, but there's a lot of practical application to AI in testing. Just back to one of my first slides with a view from the other side, and maybe I did allude to it. I don't really know of any of the big global firms that can help us when it comes to testing artificial intelligence. If you look past the sales talks and all the exciting stuff, and these guys are good at selling, I've not practically seen them helping any organization. down the road, especially a very immature organization. Some of the names I'm going to show you now toward the end are people who are running small little boutique companies focused just on AI and testing, not well-known brands. But go and have a look at what some of those people are doing. Now, whether you'll get them into your organization because they're not a big brand, I don't know. But I think the whole world of vendors, testing vendors, is busy changing. You know what, and this is just my view. The thousands of people in India, offshore testers, and in China and elsewhere, could be all replaced by AI if we do it right. And not in all sectors, not just testing. But why do we need 100,000 people to execute if machine learning can do it for us? So I'm glad I'm not working for a company whose model is based on a big offshore team. Because there's a big threat there. Why should thousands of humans do it when a machine can do it? This is what I wanted to get to, and I'll just tell you. So this is Andrew Williams. Sorry, Windows machine. So Andrew works for IBM. Definitely worth following, and again, don't worry about writing down too much now. Rick Marcellus and Tom van der Ven work for Sogeti in the Netherlands. These guys are doing great work in AI and testing. Some really interesting things. Jeff is with Dell EMC in Texas. I think he just come back from Hustef. I don't know how many of you were in Hungary recently for that conference. Jason Alban is most likely, of everyone I'm showing you today, the leader in AI and testing. His company is called Test.ai. He's the CEO. Massive guy. Massive, massive guy. But listen to his talks. Jeremias Ruschler from Germany, PhD, professor. I spoke to him one day, and after time I just said yes. I didn't know what he was talking about. He's just one of those very smart people. All right? But these are people who are practically helping clients, even though it's very early days, to implement AI testing. And then just my last slide with these. Tariq King, he does a lot of work with Jason, also perhaps one of the better known people, also PhD. Dione Santiago and Peter Clark. Peter is a professor in, what did I put here? Florida. Dione is his student. These guys are producing more from an academic point of view, a lot of work on AI and testing. Paul Mowat, who is working for Accenture in London. Alexander is working for King. King are the people who's producing Candy Crush, games like that. So he does produce a lot of interesting stuff, although it's very related to gaming. But there's a lot in gaming that we can apply into what we do. And a lot of you must know Angie Jones, who I still say she's at Twitter here. I think she left recently. Now, why is there one female on all these slides, ladies? Can we please next year have some more of you on here? Okay. All right, we're almost done. So this is the Nick Bostrom book. Let me just read this. This is from his introduction. In this book, I try to understand the challenge presented by the prospect of superintelligence and how we might best respond. This is quite possibly the most important and most daunting challenge humanity has ever faced. And whether we succeed or fail, it will possibly be the last. Sorry, Windows machine. That's, I think, at the, oh, my word. Okay, sorry. But it's actually quite a heavy quote that I've now messed up, because you should have a drum roll in the background. Basically what he's saying is, super artificial intelligence will be the last thing mankind will ever create. And it will destroy us or it's going to serve us. There's nothing, I know it's challenging to say that, there's nothing else that's going to follow. Everything else that's going to follow will come out of super intelligence. But we can really mess this up, and I think we most likely will. But that's just, then it means we're all going to die, but don't worry about that right now. Then I've got one more video. It's about 6 minutes long. I think it's quite good. And then I've got one more slide that's going to take me 30 seconds, and then we're done. Are you still okay with that? Okay. I love this video.
If you're watching this, you're among the 3% of people that understand that the future of work is going to look very different from what it is.
Sorry, let's try again. I don't know what else is open here. Let's have a quick look. Oh, not much. You know how great this was on my Mac when I played it earlier? And I switch it on and it's there. These things you switch on, you go make coffee, you go mow the lawn, and you come back and the Windows machine is on.
If you're watching this, you're among the 3% of people that understand that the future of work is going to look very different from what it is now. So
Sorry, I'm going to try one more time. Any people technically strong enough to figure out why it's doing this, or is it just a crap machine? Reboot it. It's going to take too long.
Bring your microphone.
Hey? My microphone. Yeah, but I still...
Your microphone.
Oh, my Mac. Yeah, but I don't know how we're going to connect it. And we're almost at the end. We're going to try... I don't know. Let's try one more, but I think they went to...
Can you find this video online? Direct.
Let me just see what connectors they're using. Yeah, VGA. So I don't want to offend anyone here. This is a technology conference, people. Are there manual forms you fill in at the end? And stickers. Where's the iPads? Let's try one more time. Although
If you're watching this, you're among the 3% of people that understand that the future lies. Just like computers, phones, or electricity are for us today. Oh, well.
that's a bummer. Anyway, the URL will be on the slides, but it's a pity. It's such a great way to end this talk. It's essentially about how the world's changing. Don't worry about it. I don't. My Mac also won't work because of the connector. You know what we can do? I'll show you like this. Not many of you are going to be able to see it though. I don't know if the sound's going to work. Let me quickly see.
If you're watching this, you're among the 3% of
Okay.
people that understand that the future of work.
Don't worry. Hey? YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it connected? Let's quickly see.
Here.
No, it seems like it's connecting.
If you want to use your mic.
Okay.
Yeah, I just need to go and run and get it quickly. It's in the bag.
Let's try.
But let's see if we can get it going. Look, I don't know what this is saying. What's this, Russian?
Yeah, try.
It's just say
Free.
the future of work.
No Wi-Fi, сочка, что подкрыл.
Let me just see which video it is. I think at the end it shows the... I just want to go to the end quickly, guys, and see which company produced this. Hello. Oh, hello. There we go.
Не получается видео запустить в обычном формате. Предложили сделать сразу с YouTube.
It's all planned. It actually heightens the suspense. Just hope this video... Here we go. Growth Tribe. Okay, cool.
Мне там флешка нужна была просто.
Now it's finding it, which is the challenge. Future of work.
Hey everybody, in this video, I'm going to
It's
explain.
that one. So, but okay, so it's it's called Growth Tribe, and the video is called The Future of Work. Let's quickly do this. So you can go and find it. But it's a really good video. It's a wake-up call about where the world's going with tech and stuff. I doubt we're going to find it. Which one? Yes, this video. Is it the third one?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, any case. I think we're not quite yet out of time. We've got a few minutes left. Let's maybe ask some questions. Can I ask you questions? Let me just bring you the mic, sorry. Okay. Technology is not working with us.
Thank you for presentation. You said a lot of future about testing in the future. And would you take us a small spoiler about your next book, about your future book?
Okay. Thank you. That's a good question. Thank you for the marketing opportunity. The question is if I can tell a little bit more about the next book. So, okay, thank you. So I've asked, so a lot of, in fact, all the people that you saw in the two slides I've just showed you, I've asked them to collaborate with me on this book about AI and testing. So some of them have submitted chapters, some of them still need to kick on the butt a bit, but I'm going to wait till January. But some of the proposals I've already seen covers a whole range of the different aspects of implementing AI and testing. Some talks about the business aspect, the technical aspect, some talks about the actual tools they've created. So it'll be about 20 chapters, there will be about 2,000 word chapters, so it'll, and you don't have to read the book from front to end, you can just pick the chapter that's most relevant to you. But that's essentially what the book's going to be. So just, and I welcome opposing views, and I told the authors that as well. As you can contradict, please do contradict each other in some of the chapters, so it opens up debate. So I hope that helps. Okay, so watch out for Jan and Feb. I hope they can get everyone to write their pieces and then it's done. Just found a new author as well. We need to speak afterwards, but thank you. Or anyone else for that matter. I think, you know what, there's some people who's getting it right, but a lot of us just need to figure out the right questions to ask. You know, that's a great way of learning, is to discover what are the questions when it comes to AI and testing or anything else. Any other comments or questions?
Yes. You described a bright future with AI, but as far as I understand, the code is not ideal right now. In our time, in the future, AI is made by people who is not ideal too, so wouldn't it be a problem? Because not ideal AI can make very many horrible things. Actually, for me, I don't want my mobile phone knocking my door looking for Sarah Connor.
Well, it's a very good point, because, you know, it's like test automation. For a lot of people, test automation just brings out the crap we put in much quicker. Okay? All right, so just automating the crap that we've already put in. So maybe AI will take the flaws of humankind and just exponentially explode it. Because we are the ones creating AI. Although AI is gonna get to a point where it recreates itself, you know, the problem there is, because then we've got no control over it anymore. Because we might not get back to some source code or some version where we were at some stage. So I think a big part of the thing is we don't know. But knowing humankind, and I'm definitely not pessimistic, I think there's a lot more good in humans than bad, but the bad is bad. So imagine when you take all that bad and put artificial intelligence on it, warfare and crimes against humanity and human trafficking and things like that. That's why Nick Bostrom says it's the last thing we'll ever create, because it's going to destroy us within a year or two, or it's going to make us go to Mars. But the thing is just, it's here, and it's growing exponentially. We all know how technology grows. What happened a year ago will be doubled in the next 6 months, or next 3 months, and so forth. So it's about embracing it. I don't fear the future of AI. Will it most likely cause a lot of trouble? It will, but I think it'll hopefully cause a lot more good. I'm just glad that I'm 44 and that I'm not my child who's 5, because he will most likely deal with more of the trouble. Say again? We need to survive. Yeah. I don't know if we will, but let's hope we will. Maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. Tell me about this. Where I can read about cobotics? Is the term?
Cobotics?
Yeah.
So I think just Google the term. So remember that all that the term talks about is...
I'm searching in Google.
Oh, you're not finding it? Oh, okay. No, on Amazon, there's a lot of books about that as well. But now, remember, it might not be called cobotics. It could be human and machine. I know there's a book called that, for instance. So books about humans and machines working together. But cobotics, even on Wikipedia, I'm sure you would find something. But right now, where I'm standing here... So co-botics.
Doesn't exist in Google.
Oh, it does. I found it somewhere.
I'm listening.
Look at the tester. I say something and they try and break it. Okay, let's see. I have no idea what I've just typed here. Firstly, a lot of games come up. Killing Floor 2, Robot Against Humans. Okay, that's not what we wanted. Okay. I did find it. Don't know where now, but Humans and Machines. So I think that's exactly the title of one of the books I looked at, Human and Machine, or something like that. Okay, but the concept is where somebody's arguing it won't destroy us, it'll help us. And obviously some of the books will argue it's the end of the world, and they both have a valid point. I think one last one. Do we still have time? Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for the great talk. I have two little questions. According to the slides about 2012, what do you think about integrating AI into Atlas or Data Robot made by Boston Dynamics? Can we see such collaboration in 2012? And the second one, will Mr. Musk do a bigger revolution feature than today?
Mr. Musk? Look, I don't know what he's going to do. I just didn't get the first one. It's something about 2012?
Do you know Boston Dynamics robots?
Yes. Well, a little bit, not a lot.
What do you think about, do you see integration AI into Boston Dynamics robots in 2012? And what the robot it will be?
2012?
Yeah.
Which is past?
In future, I mean.
Oh, in future, okay.
I'm sorry, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I just thought, what now? There's a movie called 2012. I don't know. I don't know the company. You know what is the challenge, and I don't know if it's relevant to what you've asked. Because remember I said earlier we can use AI to test, or we can test AI, but what about AI testing AI? What about AI making AI? You know, I don't know if it's relevant to what you're asking, but I think that's also part of the problem going forward. What if we lose control of these things and they make themselves, either for the good or absolutely for the bad? So other than that, I don't know too much, so I'm sorry. Listen guys, I know you're going to rush out now to party. Please put stickers on the board before you leave if you want to. But I hope you enjoyed it. I try to make it like down to chilled and whatever. Walk out of here with a hunger to explore it more. If that's what you walk out with, then I'm happy and I feel I've been successful. Thank you for the opportunity.
Question.
Sorry again?
Could you choose the best question?
Choose the best question. The book. What is the book going to be about? It serves my interest best. Thanks, guys.